Well, my treasures, all the cards for Delve into Deepholm have been revealed, including the excavating rewards for both Shaman and Paladin, and a surprise visit from a character that no one expected to see really in this mini set, Sir Finley. So let's begin with the newest cards first, and then go backwards through time and finish this mini set card review off. So let's begin. The first card is going to be Digging Straight Down, a 4-cost nature spell that deals 8 damage to a minion. Excavate a treasure. Now, depending on what the excavating reward is, I haven't looked at it yet, and this could be really good or really bad. If the excavating reward for Shaman is really bad, then this card probably won't see much play, but I'm going to assume it's going to be at least halfway decent, making this card probably pretty good since it is a pretty decent removal tool for 4 mana and is a nature spell. The one downside about this card in particular though is it does dilute the pool of nature cards for the nature synergy deck, making it a little bit harder to OTK in that style of deck. Now for the next card, which is going to be Needle Rock Totem, a 2-cost 0 attack 2 HP totem for Shaman and Warrior. At the end of your turn, gain 2 armor and draw a card. Great for Menagerie Warrior. That deck didn't really have any type of totem that you really wanted to run in the deck, and this is an easy totem to want to run in the deck, and it gives you a little bit of advantage in both draw power and being able to gain armor, giving it even more flexibility in something like a armor gaining warrior deck, even if you don't want to use it in Menagerie. And the third card here is Shroom Excavate, a 3-cost spell that gives a minion 1 Fury and Divine Shield. Excavate a treasure for Shaman and Paladin, since we do know that both of these classes are going to be getting an excavating reward, and this is actually a pretty powerful card. If you can give Wind Fury to something with a lot of attack, this makes it incredibly strong, especially in Paladin where you already have a lot of ways to buff up all your minions, making Wind Fury incredibly strong in that class in particular. I can't see a world where this doesn't see play, even if both of the excavating rewards are really bad. Alright, now for the next 2 cards. Aftershocks is a 4-cost nature spell that deals 1 damage to all minions 3 times, costs 2 less if you've cast a spell last turn. It's for Shaman and Warrior. Probably a pretty decent AoE. I don't know if this is going to be ran over some of the other choices that you have for AoE, such as Lightning Storm, which is going to be 1 mana less. The benefit about this card is if you are running a spell-based deck in Shaman in particular, you should be able to easily discount this down to 2 mana, thus being better than Lightning Storm, and it doesn't overload you unless you're going down the overload route. In Warrior, I think there are better options, at least until Blade Storm rotates out once again. Overall, this is probably a pretty decent card. And next card is going to be Fossilize Kylosaur, a 4-cost 3 attack 4 HP undead beast. Battlecry, gain 2 random bonus effects. Excavate a treasure. This is a really neat reference to the original quest for Paladin. I can see this definitely seeing some type of play if the excavating treasure is really good, at least the legendary one. So let's look at those legendary excavating rewards. The first non-beast excavating reward, which is going to be a 4-cost 5 attack 5 HP elemental Murloc. Battlecry, transform all your other minions into ones that cost 3 more. Keep their original costs. Now, this is very, very interesting. I'm very curious of if this means all minions within your deck, making this card a little bit harder to actually use if you're trying to use it in a Murloc deck. And as an excavating reward, you will have a little bit of trouble there too. It's very similar to Stars Align in Priest, which makes it a little bit curious there too. And it is going to be one of those cards that makes it incredibly difficult to get 2 of them instead of just 1. So it's going to be one of the harder excavating rewards to actually build around, but it does generate you a lot of advantage because Shaman does have historically a lot of spells that you're going to want to run anyways. I don't see this card being played in a Highlander list just because of like how difficult this is going to be, and it does get rid of some of your Highlander support, but honestly, it could be a lot of fun to play around with. Now let's get on to the Paladin reward, which is going to be the Azerite Dragon, a 4-cost 5 attack 5 HP elemental dragon. Battlecry, give all other minions in your hand, deck, and battlefield +3/+3. Such a cool looking card and is incredibly strong. If you can get this online really quickly, all the buffs that you have access to in Paladin should make this card incredibly good to use. And because you can easily use a lot of the other buff cards that we've seen so far, such as the Wind Fury and Divine Shield, you should be able to make any minion be able to hit your opponent's face by quite a bit. It's going to make Paladin quite frightening actually in this standard until we see the rotation happen because of how many really good buff cards we do have existing in the class already. Now let's get on to the final legendary, which is the final League of Explorers member, Sir Finley the Intrepid, a 3-cost 2 attack 3 HP Murloc. Battlecry, if you've excavated twice, transform all enemy minions into 1/1 Murlocs. Oh, this is such a good removal tool for both Paladin and Shaman. The only downside of this card is if your opponent is running a Murloc deck, you will just basically give them a lot of Murloc synergy. However, because there is no real big popular Murloc deck currently in Standard, this is just a really good card. A 3 mana, basically make your opponent's board completely useless is incredibly strong, especially given the fact that there are a lot of really powerful early game death rattle minions currently in the game. You can also use it into the late game, making a huge big board turn into a little small board that you can easily combo out with Consecration or Lightning Storm AoE removal that you might have in your hand. This is probably a card that will see a lot of play in both classes, and I can't wait to try it out. Alright, now for the Paladin and DK card. The first one is going to be Quartzite Crusher, a 4-cost 3 attack 3 durability weapon for DK only with 1 blood rune and 1 frost rune requirement. Lifesteal, freeze any character damaged by your hero. Man, if I had a nickel for every time we got freeze DK support that can't be used in freeze DK, I'd have 2 nickels. It's weird that it's happened twice. It is easily fixed if we removed the blood rune requirement on the card, and honestly I could see them changing this card to only require 1 frost rune in the nearby future if this card does not see too much play. Next card we're going to be going over is the Prosthetic Hand, a 3-cost 3 attack 1 HP mech. Magnetic Reborn, can magnetize to mechs or undead. Now, DKs don't really have any mech synergy that you can easily use this in combination with, but the undead synergy is actually quite useful and can be used both by DK or Paladin, both of which have a bunch of hand buffing cards currently in rotation. Now for the final DK Paladin card, Mining Casualties, a 2-cost spell that summons 2 1/1 silver hand recruits. With death rattle, summon a 1/1 frail ghoul. Now, if you have ways to easily destroy the recruits, so you can easily summon out the 2 frail ghouls, this could be incredibly strong. This is actually a pretty good card for any Paladin deck that's running Crusader Aura, because you can easily get double the advantage off each individual recruit. It also is worth mentioning, if you run something like Wild Pyromancer also, you can easily instantly trigger the death rattle off of this card, thus making it a little bit better there. Overall, I think this one has a lot of potential just because it is actually easily abusable in both DK and Paladin. And now let's get onto the Hunter DK cards. However, the first card here we're going over is Shimmer Shot, a pure Hunter card, a 1-cost arcane spell that deals 1 damage. Summon a random minion of that cost. Now, while we have the other arcane support in standard rotation, this card is actually pretty good because it does allow you to scale up both the damage and the minion that you're going to be summoning off of this. However, once those cards rotate out, this card is probably going to be dead in the water, at least for the majority of the year, which makes it a little bit sad, but I do think this will push Arcane Hunter forward enough to maybe see this deck come back after not really doing anything in the current expansion. Now, time for Mismatch Fossils, a 3-cost Hunter and DK spell that discovers a beast and an undead. Swap their stats. Now, there are some funny memes with this card, such as discovering a 0-cost flipper, so you can then swap the stats with a big old Thaddeus into a 0-cost 11/11. However, the majority of the time, you are not going to be able to do that, though it is quite funny to imagine doing it and could make for a fun little short. Overall, I will say, though, outside of that, this does have a little bit of potential in Hunter in particular, just because it does allow you to run some additional beast support within Hunter that you might not normally want to, because you can now have additional beast targets without hard running them in the deck, so you can easily abuse Selective Breeder to get copies of important key beasts. However, in DK, I don't honestly see where this would be easily playable. Now for the next one, which is Obsidian Remnant, a 6-cost 4 attack, 6 HP elemental, taunt, death rattle, summon 2 random death rattle minions that costs 3 or less. Great, because we have Yelling Yodeler in the mix for both of these class. One downside of the card, it is a 6-cost card, so using it in combination with Yelling Yodeler is a 10 mana combo. However, that does fill up your board, which is actually pretty decent. I could maybe see this scene play as a late game threat for like Unholy DK, or some type of new Death Rattle Hunter deck, because it is a non-beast that you can easily run, so you can still have a low beast count within Death Rattle Hunter, so you can easily abuse the Selective Breeders and such in that deck. Overall, this does have some potential. I just think that it might cost a little bit too much to see a huge amount of play, but it could still be fun to play around with. Alright, now for the Mage and Hunter cards. The first one is going to be Summoning Ward, a 3-cost secret. When your turn starts, summon a copy of your highest cost minion. This is probably one of the worst secrets that we've seen for Mage in quite a long time. The Mage secrets that see play right now are both Objection and Counterspell, but Objection is rotating out. You could, in theory, use this as a way to maybe try to get additional copy of Sif or something like Norgon. However, most people try to hard target those minions off of your board before the turn ends, making it a little bit harder to easily abuse. Now let's get on to the first Hunter and Mage card, Mantle Shaper, a 5-cost 5 attack 5 HP Elemental Naga, costs 1 less for each spell you've cast while holding this. This card is incredibly strong. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about it. This card will probably see play in both classes. Both classes have easy access to a ton of spells and a ton of ways to generate additional spells, making this something that you could easily cheat out by turn 3 if you are lucky enough. Honestly speaking, this is probably one of the best designed dual class cards we've seen in this entire mini set. Now for Elemental Companion, the final Mage Hunter card, a 3-cost spell that summons a random Elemental Companion. The first one is going to be Messio, which is a 3-cost 4 attack 4 HP Elemental, cannot be targeted by spells or hero powers. Heifer, a 3-cost Elemental with 4 attack 2 HP. Your spells cost 1 less. And then we have Luke, who is a 3-cost 2 attack Elemental with 4 HP and +2 spell damage. This card has no synergy with any of the elementals support that Mage currently has access to, because you have to play the card instead of just summoning a random elemental each individual turn to keep those online, making this even worse than it even would look like, where it in theory could have seen some play in Elemental Mage, since all 3 of these elementals are actually pretty decent by themselves. Alright, now for the Warlock and Mage cards. The first one is going to be Elementium Geode, a 2-cost 2 attack 1 HP Elemental. Battlecry and Death Rattle, draw a card, deal 2 damage to your hero. This is basically Cobalt Librarian 2.0, but it is even stronger than Librarian because you get it twice instead of once. This is probably one of the most playable Warlock cards in this entire mini set, because the card that this is a power creep on was incredibly playable back then, and being able to draw a bunch of cards out of your deck really quickly is really powerful when the most popular Warlock deck right now is a Thaddeus OTK combo deck. Now let's get on to the first Mage Warlock card, Chaos Creation. 6-cost fell spell that deals 6 damage, summon a random 6-cost minion, destroy the bottom 6 cards of your deck. This card will probably never see any play in Mage and might see some play in Warlock. However, compared this to Fireland's Portal in Mage, the only benefit of this card is it is a fail spell. And we all know whenever we play a Rainbow Mage list, Sif is always in the bottom 6 cards of the deck, so you're always going to be destroying Sif if you try to use it in that style of deck. This is great for an enabler for Sludge Warlock. However, Sludge Warlock wasn't really missing enablers, it was missing cards that generated additional sludge. And because we didn't see any additional support for that in the mini set, I don't think this is going to push that deck any further up. Now for the next one, which is going to be Soul Freeze, a 1-cost frost spell. Freeze a minion and its neighbors, deal damage to your hero equal to the number frozen. This is interesting for Wild Hearthstone, but in Standard I don't see this one seeing too much play. It could be really useful in questline Warlock and Wild, but outside of that, this is one of those cards that, because we don't see much freeze support currently in Standard, I don't even see it seeing play in Mage in particular. Now for the Warlock and Druid cards. The first one is going to be Gloomstone Guardian, a 4-cost 6 attack elemental with 8 HP. Taunt, choose one, discard 2 cards, or destroy one of your mana crystals. Forge, do neither. For discard Warlock, this is incredibly good. For Druid, this is incredibly good. Both classes can easily abuse this, and most of the time it is just going to be a free 6/8 on turn 4 because you will probably be easily able to forge it earlier on if you aren't even running a discard Warlock deck. It could easily replace the 4-cost 7/7 within most Warlock decks that is used with Forge of Wheels currently, just because 1 additional HP and having a big taunt and being able to attack is a lot stronger in my opinion than using a 7/7 that can't attack, and you can easily use it as a way to keep going face. Now for the next card, which is going to be Trog Gem Toster, a 3-cost 3 attack 2 HP minion. Finale, deal 1 damage to a random enemy for each of your mana crystals. Now this card is going to be a lot harder to abuse just because of the finale keyword than you might originally think. Honestly, the one home I could see it maybe in is in a zoo type Warlock deck or even a aggro Druid deck. Who knows? I think it might be quite more flexible than I'm giving credit for, just because it does have the potential to do a lot of damage late into the game, but just being able to do random points of damage here and there could be in theory pretty strong even for 3 mana. Now for the Druid only card, which is going to be Crystal Cluster, a 6-cost spell that gives you 3 empty mana crystals, any that cannot fit. Summon a 3/7 elemental with taunt. Now by turn 6, a lot of the time Druid is going to have easy access to 10 mana, which means this is going to be 3 3/7s by turn 6, which not a lot of classes can actually deal with, and the few AoEs that could in theory be played on turn 6, such as Harmonic Pop, won't be able to destroy them because they will have 1 mana left. Overall, this card is probably incredibly playable. It does increase the rampability of Druid by quite a lot and is actually quite a scary card, especially given the fact that we will probably be seeing some type of armored Druid where they're going to want to min-max the amount of minions they directly run in the deck and be able to ramp up as quickly as humanly possible, which this card fits perfectly well. And speaking of those cards, let's get on to the next batch. For Priest and a Druid, the first one is going to be Pennant of Earth, a 3-cost nature spell. Discover a minion from your deck. Gain armor equals to its cost. Now, remember that armor Druid deck that I was theory crafting earlier, where Crystal Cluster was a really good card in because you wanted to run a minimum amount of minions? Well, this is the other card that enables that deck. You could use this in combination with Naga Giant in order to gain 20 armor on turn 3, which is everyone's favorite thing to see in the world, especially since you can easily abuse it even later into the game with stuff like Zoc. And because of the next card that we'll be going over, Shattered Reflections, a 5-cost spell for Druid and Priest. Choose a minion, add a copy to your hand, deck, and battlefield. You'll be able to get even more copies of all the cards mentioned before, such as Zoc or even a new Rakan. Overall, I'm really looking forward to trying to make a armor variant of Druid work. However, it is also worth mentioning both of these cards work in the Raw Din deck which was the last deck that I put up because it does allow you to easily put an additional Raw Din to the bottom of the deck, making it where you can always go infinite with the Raw Din combo. Overall, I think both of these cards are quite playable in actually both of the classes that they are being printed for, and I can't wait to try them out. Finally, for the other priest card, we have Glowstone Gyre Worm, a 4-cost 4 attack, 4 HP elemental, lifesteal, quick draw, deal 5 damage, forge, change quick draw to battle cry. Now, I hate to say it, but we can use this in combination with Thaddeus to do a bunch of damage if we have additional ways to get more copies of it, such as good old Power Chord Synchronize, which allows you to get up to 4 of these really easily, which is straight up 20 damage. You can also then use 2 additional Brewmasters to make it to up to 30 damage with the combo. Now, is it going to be a great combo? Probably not, but that is the only home that I can see this card seeing too much play in. Alright, so those were all the cards revealed for Delve into Deepholm. Let me know down below what decks you're most excited to try out. Honestly speaking, I think Armor Druid is something that I'm really looking forward to try out, along with the Brann OTK deck figured out after my initial card review. Let me know down below which cards you're most excited to use, and until next time, bye bye.